Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we will be looking at the application right on your screen using .NET MAUI. This application development process is going to be divided into 4 different sections. The first one is the project structure. The second one is the layout and design, so we're going to do the layout and then design the pages. And next is custom control, because we're going to be using one custom control. And then lastly we're going to look at animation. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So looking at it, this is the application we're going to be designing. We can see we have 2 pages. We have the landing page and then the details page. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a new project. We can say all platform and just look at the project type and select the .NET MAUI and the project type. Click next. I'm going to give it say property app. Next, I will be using the .NET 8. So create the project, and we allow Visual Studio to do the magic for us. So going to the project setup, what I'm going to do is to bring in 3 different images that we need. They're just icons that we're going to be using. So I'm going to put that in the resources, and then under images we have this .NET bot, but I'm going to paste 3 other images. So there's this arrow icon, the map icon, and then the close icon. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to organize things into structures. So I'm going to create some folders here, because we are working on the project structure here actually. So I will be creating a folder. The first folder I will be having is control. The next one is going to be model, put model. We're going to need for the view, so probably call it view, and then we need for the view model. So I'm going to add one more folder here and call it view model. So next now is the layout. So let's go to our view, and then we're going to add a new page. We select the .NET MAUI, and then I'm going to select the XAML content page. I will rename this and call it the landing page. The second page we need is the details page. So I'm going to rename this and call it details page. The next thing I would like to do is to add a view model. So in the folder, the first thing I'm going to do is to add a base view model. This base view model is going to mark it as public, and then I will inherit the 𝐻𝐸 property change, and then I'm going to implement this interface. And then we're going to have a method, and then here of course we can pass property name that wants to change, but if you want this to fire without having to supply the property, we can use the color member name here. So we'll do the color member name. So what this would do is when we call this method in the property, it's going to pick the member name. So this needs to have a default value, so we're going to give it a default value. And here what we're going to do is we're going to do a property change, and then we're going to invoke the property change, and then we're going to pass in the property name. And so yeah, with this now we are done with the base view model. We need 2 other view models for the pages that we've created. So I'm going to add a class. I'm going to call this landing view model, and I'm going to add, it's going to be public, and then this will inherit from the base view model. So with that automatically inherits the 𝐻𝐸 property change. The last view model that we need is the details view model, and same public modifier, and that's going to inherit from the base view model. I want to quickly go back to the app.xaml.cs and change this from the app shell. So it's going to be a new navigation page, and then I'm going to pass in the landing page. Well, I'm going to pass in the new landing page. All right, so yeah, this is done. I'm going to save everything. Let's quickly look at our design again. So look at what we need to do. So looking at this, we can say that we have like 3 different rows in our application. If we want to base it, so we can have this. The first part here has a row. We can add this as a row, and then we can have the collection view as a row. For house cleaning, I'm going to remove this, and then I'm going to add navigation page that has navigation bar. I'm going to set this to false because I don't want the navigation bar to show. So I'm going to start with the grid, and this grid is going to have a row definition of 3 rows, and the first one is auto, the other one auto, and then the last one's going to take all the space, just like I've explained before. I'm going to fill all this to have horizontal and vertical options to be fill and expand, and I want to give it a padding of 32. So from the design, our padding is 32. The background is going to be off-white, and then we're going to have a row spacing of 32. So yeah, we can start to look at our application as we design. So I decided to bring that in. So going forward now, let's work on the first part of the application, the first row, I mean. So now the first row, what we have is the row, the grid, and in that grid we have a vertical stack layout that contains the welcome back and the name, and then to the right we have a border, and inside the border we have an image, and the image has a source. The next part that we're going to need to do is the second row, and I'm going to say grid, and this grid will be in the grid.row, row 1, and this particular grid also will be divided into 3 rows, and let me show you 3 rows. So this is the grid. So we're going to have a row for this part. The second row is probably going to take this this line, and the third row is going to take this headings. So going back to our design, we're going to have 3 rows: auto, 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 and then fill and expand. And then we're going to add the title, and then we have a map. Then we're going to add a line. That particular line is going to be in the second row of this grid now. So it's going to be in row 1. I mean grid.row equals 1. That's the second row. And then we have the x value of the line to start from 0. The x2 is the end of the line. We're setting it to 1000 because we want it to stretch really across. So if you can see from the screen, we have a line there already. So here we're going to have a scroll view, and this scroll view, the orientation is going to be horizontal. We're going to put it in the 3rd row, and then we're going to set the horizontal scroll visibility to not show. So orientation is horizontal row, that's the 3rd row, and we don't want the scroll bar to show. And then right in this, we're going to have horizontal stack layout because we want to stack things horizontally. We're going to give it a name. We'll call it a section list, and then we have a margin for it at the top to be 20, and then we're going to set this to a bindable list of something called section. So we're going to bind the values in this horizontal layout to something called sections in our code. So I'm going to stop this for now. So the section is going to contain the list of all the sections that we have, and those are these sections, in case you've forgotten: the trending, popular, and buy. And then from here, we want to still have a spacing of 10. So we want to space the items out by 10. And here we're going to have, now let's do the data template for the bindable layout. So we're going to do bindable layout dot item template, and this item template, we're going to add the data template to it, and the data template is going to be a radio button, and the radio button, we're going to style the radio button so that we'll be able to have the kind of styling that we want. So I'm going to do radio button, and we're going to set the content, because now the content is going to be coming from the list of sections. So we're going to do binding, and set it to the current value, because we are going to be passing a list of string to this, and that list of string, doesn't have a name, so we can't put a name here. So we're going to use the dot to represent that it says the current value of that list, the current string of that list. And then let's go to the view model for the landing view model. And what I want to do is to create the properties for the sections. So we have a list of sections now already, and then what I will do in order for us to be able to see what we are showing is to set the binding context of our page to the we're going to set it to the view model. So there are different ways to go about it. We can do it in the XAML, but in this case now I will go to the code behind of the landing view model, the landing page. So what I'm going to do here is to do this dot binding context. I'll set that to a new landing view model. Now we need to resolve the namespace, and then we have this. Okay, so with this now, if we run the application, we should be able to see a list of radio buttons showing us the section. So now this is good. Now the next thing we need to do is to style this radio button for us to have exactly what we need. So we'll come back to the landing page. So what we need to do is to add in the resources. So we're going to do content page dot resources, and then in here we're going to say resource dictionary to add all the resources inside here. And what we want to do is to add a control template. You can do control templates, and then in the control templates, what we can do is to give it X key, S key, and then call it section template. So now we have this, and then we're going to have a border. So the way I want it to structure it is such that we have a border, and then I'm going to minimize this one. We have a border. The border is going to be of width of 120, the rectangle shape, the stroke shape is going to be rounded rectangle, and we just want to let it have 20, just corner radius of 20, and then stroke of no stroke, and the background color of this. And then right inside there we're going to have a label. So that's the label that's going to hold the content, so the values that we have in this control, this radio button. So what I'm going to do is to add a label, and then the label is going to give it a name because we're going to manipulate it using Visual State Manager. So we're going to give it a name, so say X name. The X name is going to call label, and then the text, what we want to do for the text is the text is going to inherit from the template. So we're going to do template binding, and then set it to content. Just type content. You will not find this in the IntelliSense, but we know that the content of this radio button is what we are binding the text to. And then from here I want to have a font of 14, and then give it some horizontal and vertical options. So now what I can do at this stage is, if I go to our list somewhere down here, and so this is our list. If I set the control template to what we have just created, what I want to do now is to reload this, and then as you can see quickly, our sections, they have already changed, but not completely. If I select on this or click on this, tap on it, nothing is happening. But we want a situation whereby you select one and then we have the color that we need. So let's continue. So let's go back to our control templates, and then what we're going to do from here is to add some visual states to this. So I'm going to do Visual State Manager .visual states groups, and then I'm going to add a visual state list. I'm going to have a list of visual states, so visual state group lists, and inside the list we're going to have a visual state group, and this group I'm going to give it a name and call it the check state. Now if you want to have other groups, so here you can add other group. That's the sense of having the visual state group list. So the first visual state I'm going to add is when it is checked. So when it is checked, I want to have a visual state and do a setter, visual state dot setters. So I want to set some properties. Now the first property I want to set is the background. Now I want to set the background to a different color. That is the blue color that we have. And then for the label, I want to set the opacity of the label to 1. I will tell you the reason why we're doing that, because when it is unchecked we want to have a different value. Let me quickly show you. When it is unchecked, you can see that it is fade. Here the opacity is actually 60% when it is unchecked. So that's why. So we're going to set it for checked and unchecked. So when it is checked, we want the opacity value to be 1, and then we want the text color of the label to be white. So you have to, if you are doing that, setting the background of this, the background color of this is actually setting the background color of the border. Now for you to target any other property, you need to reference it by name. I mean any other control, you need to reference it by name, and that's why we had the name label for this. And then we say target name equals label, and then the property is label.opacity. All right, so now we have for our checked value. Let's do for the unchecked. I'm going to copy the entire visual state, the entire visual state, and then change the name to unchecked, and then change some values around. So we're going to change the background value back to off-white that we started with. The opacity is going to be 60%, and then the text color is going to be black. So now with this, we are done with our visual state, and I'm going to run this now. We should be able to select our controls and then see the values change. So if I select this, you can see I can, and since they are radio button, I can only select one in a group. But if you notice, when we first launched the application, none of this was actually selected. So what we want to do is at launch, we want the first item, the trending, to be selected. And to do this, we're going to go back to the code behind of our landing page view model. And after this line, we're going to add a line, and I'm going to explain to you. So what we want to do is we have a section list. If you notice our list, we call it a section list. Let me show you the name here. We have a section list. We're going to get this control, this horizontal stack layout, get all the children, and get the first children. And the first children is going to be a border, a radio button rather, because this is a radio button. It's going to be a radio button, and then we're going to set the property. To do that, we're going to start with this. So section list. So this is the control, and then children. We're going to get the children, and now from the array of children, we're going to get the first one, that is the one at index 0. Now that is it, and then we're going to say has radio button, because it's a radio button. We'll cast it into a radio button, and from there we can find the is checked value and set it to true. So let's run this. So now we have the first item selected by default. So going to other, you can select other ones. So let's look at how to work on the collection view. So we'll come back to our page. We have another row here, and then we're going to add the collection view to this page. Now the collection view is going to be binding to a list of properties. When I say properties, I mean like houses, list of houses that we want to show. And so I'm going to do this. So now we have a collection view. We give it a name called view. It's in the third row, and we are binding the item source to a property, list of properties. We have the vertical visibility, vertical scroll bar visibility to never. Selection is single. Selected item is going to be binding to a property called selected item, and then the selected property change is going to be also binded to a property change. So what we want to do is to set the layout of the collection view. So the layout is going to be a grids items layout, and then we're going to have a grid item layout, vertical orientation. We're going to span it to 2 columns. We have some spacing in there, and we need the items template. So we're going to do collection view dot items template, item template, and there we're going to have a data template. Now this data template is going to be a grid. We're going to start with a grid. We have a width and height of 210, width of 160, and then that is just to wrap things, just as a wrapper. And inside this, we're going to have a vertical stack layout. We could probably use the vertical stack layout as a parent control. There's nothing stopping you from having a vertical stack layout and then set the width and the height. but I like to put things in a grid just to have that. You can also put it in a border if you want to. So in this stack layout, we're going to have two things stacked together. The first thing is going to be a border. So we're going to have a border, and this border is going to have a height of, the normal height 160, and we're going to have a stroke width of 0, and in the border we're going to have an image. So the image is what's going to be showing the image of the property that we are talking about. So the image, I'm going to bind, the source is going to be the default image property in that we'll have in our model. So I will show you the model now, but let's just know that there's going to be a default image property in one of our models. So after this, I'm going to just bring in this piece of code just to save time. So the next thing we're going to be stacking together here is going to be just two labels, the one that's going to show the address and the one that's going to show the price, and we are formatting the price in this way, so that we can have the design to look like this. So we have the image that is rendered, we have the name, where the property is, and then we have the price shown. So now, because we don't have anything, if we show the app now, it's not going to show anything. So what we're going to do is to work on our model. So on the model, we're going to add a model, and the name of the model is going to be called property.cs. So that's the property that we want to show. I'm going to change this to public, and then in the property we're going to have just few properties rather, property in property. So we're going to have the default image that I've just shown you. We're going to have the address, the price, and then we're going to have a list of images. Now for us to be able to show some data, we're going to create I'll put this in the model folder. So let's create a class. We're going to call it property repo. So it's just going to serve as the data for us. So property repository. So, and in this property repository, what we need to do is to have a list of properties that I want to show. So now what we have here is just a single static property and the list of property, our model property, and what that would do is to return a list of property for us. And here we have different property items. So we have Manhattan, we have Queens, New York, Brooklyn, and then we have a list of images that we're going to use in our details, and we have the default image property here. So now we have the property repo. What we need to do next is to go to our landing view model. It's the view model, not the page. The landing view model, and then we need to add some properties. So the first one is to get a list of properties. So I'm gonna do this. So we have list of property called properties, and then that is going to our property repo and giving us all properties. And don't forget, this property properties is going to be binding to the collection view. Then the next thing that we need is the selected property. We need this, so anytime you select a property from the collection view, it's going to be held in this value. And then the next thing we need is to have a command that's going to be fired, that we already bound. So this command is called property selected, and then when this is selected, it's going to check if the selected property is not equal to null, and then it will take us to the details page. So this is saying that it doesn't have any parameter, so I'm just going to add the parameter to it. So now we have our page done. What I'm going to do is to run it, and then we see. Then we go to the details page. So now, as you can see, we have our property here. If I tap on this is taking us to the details page, and there's nothing there. We can go back. See here, as you can see, we still have that selection. So now, before we go to the details page, there's something I want us to quickly do. I don't like this orange design, this orange color when we select a list. I know it's an issue also, back in Xamarin.forms, and there is a way to have this taken care of, because you don't want to select this and then when you come back you still have this color selected. It's not looking good. So what we're going to do is we go to the landing page, the XAML, and then in the resource dictionary, we're going to add a style to this. So what I will do is it's a simple style that I'm going to bring in. I'm just going to explain to you just for the sake of time. So we're going to have a style and target the grid, and in the property we have a visual state manager group. So one thing about list is that they have different states. So we have the normal state and they have the selected state. Now we want to target the selected state. For the normal state, we don't want to do anything. For the selected state, what we want to do is to set the background color and set it to transparent. So now if I select this and go back, you can see that the orange selection is gone. So that's how you take care of the orange selection. Now let's go to our details page. We are moving forward. So for the details page, we have, from our design, we have a very simple design for our details page, so it should be fairly easy to work with. So we have a background image. So the background image is going to be like a default image, and then we have a list of items here. We have a button that can go to another page, and we have some details at the lower part of the page. So let's design this. So these are the details page. Because I don't want the navigation bar to show, so I'm going to say navigation page dot has navigation bar. I'm going to set this to false. And on this page, what we are going to do is to look at how to section this. So we're going to start with a grid because we need a background image. So start with a grid, and in this grid, the first we're going to have is the background image. So we have an image. Aspect is going to be aspect fill. The source will be selected property dot default image. I'm very sure you're familiar with the default image property. And then right on top of it, we need a grid that we're going to divide into two different rows. And then the first row is going to have a vertical stack layout, and the second row is going to have a grid. So what I'm going to do is to start with the second row because it's fairly simple. I'm just going to bring in some code here and explain to you just for the sake of time. Now, so we have a row, we call it a pop view. We are naming it because we need it for animation later on. And right inside it, we have our border. This border is going to be what's going to serve as a transparent background color for us. So it's going to have rounded. So let me just quickly show you in our design. So this selected part, that is the border. And it's going to have, we're going to round it up, 35 at the, the top left, 35 at the top right, and then the other part we don't want any corner radius. We have the stroke thickness, the opacity is set to 90%, fill and expand. Then we have this grid. In this grid we want to have a padding of the reason why we're adding grid is because we want to arrange things into on top of each other, if I can put it like that. Yeah, that's why I'm using grid. So this stack layout and this image button will be in the same grid but in different arrangements. So the stack layout, vertical stack layout, is going to have another vertical stack layout, vertical stack layout, if I can pronounce that well, and we call it the address view because we're going to need this for the animation. And inside the stack layout we have two labels, the one that is binding to the address and one that is binding to the price. Just like you can see, we have some properties for it. We have the text color is black, fonts, and then we have the fonts attributes. And then we have a button. We have a button that is saying buy now or buy now, and we have some properties for it: text color, fonts, font attributes, the height, the width request, the corner radius, the horizontal option, and then margin. So that is for the stack layout. The image button is for us to be able to close. So if I just go to our design, which is currently running, and select something, we can still find it, or we can find it now. So you can see this is the button that we have now. We have the close button also. The text are not showing because we don't have the property to bring in a text yet, and the background is not showing because we don't have the property also. From here, I want to pause on the design. Let's go to the view model and then put some properties in the view model, because I want this to also be able to show as we are designing, so we see as we design along. So going to the view model, we have few properties that we need to add. What I'm going to do is to copy and show you. So we have a property that is this coming from our model. So this is selected property. We have the property image. This is what is going to be the property images, list of images for the property, and then more items. I'm going to show you the reason why we need this in a moment. And we have a command. So now that we have this, we also need to bind to the details view model. So we go to the code behind for the details, for the details page rather. I'll go to the code behind and set the binding context to the view model. Have a view model variable here and set it to the new view model, and set the property to selected property. So I'm going to do selected property. So that's the property that we are passing to our view, our details page. So we want to pass that to the view model for us to be able to do the binding. And then the next thing is to set the property images. So property images in the view model is set to selected property dot the images. That's the list of images. I want to take 2 out of it. And then the next thing we want to do is to set the more items. So we say view model dot more items, that is the integer, is the list of property images, and find the count and remove the 2 that we've taken out of it. So that will give us the rest. Maybe we have 0 left, or we have 1 left, and the likes. And then the next thing we're going to do here is to say binding context equals this. All right, so with this now we have our details page set up. So we should be able to run it and then see how it looks like. So this is running now, and then if I select an item, so you can see that we have the default image, and then we have some details here. I'm going to go back and then select Brooklyn. So we have Brooklyn, New York. This is the default image, the price, the buy now, the close. If I click on close, it goes back. So this is working. So now let's go back to the design of this page and then finish up on the layout and design before we go into the custom controls. So going back to the details page in the XAML, I'm going to minimize this so that we'll be able to see what we're doing. So we want to set the value that is, we have two rows for this grid. One is showing the details, that is the pop view, the one that is at the bottom part, the lower part of the page. But now we want to show the list of images and then the view details. So I want to show this now, this part, and then this part. That's what I want to design now. So we're going to put them in a stack layout, a vertical stack layout. And this vertical stack layout, we're going to call it the side view. Give it a name called side view. That's for the purpose of animation. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to have a grid. We have a grid. We have to call it images. And then in the list of images, we're going to have the background. So the background is a transparent background. And the way I want to do that is to use a rectangle and give it a fill of white, give it radius, a stroke, and then the opacity. So this is going to be at the background of that particular part of the design. So for the list of images, I'm going to use a collection view. I'll use a collection view and set the binding to the property images. And for the item templates of the collection view, what we're going to use is just a border, and then in the border we're going to have the image. So collection view, the item templates, data templates, we are going to have a border. The border is going to be 60 by 60. We're going to have it center at the horizontal, and then we have stroke shape to be rectangle, round rectangle, and 30 corner radius all around. That is the half value of this. So just so that we have a complete circle. And then the margin is going to be 10 at the bottom. Then we're going to have image. The binding source is going to be set to this because it's going to be a string. Width and height of 60, center horizontally. Now let's run this and we'll see that we have a list of our images. We should have a list of our images shown when we select the item. So now we have, as you can see, we have two images. Now we need to have the last thing, that is the more items. So I'm going to do collection view dot footer, and this footer is going to have a border, and in the border we're going to put a label. So as you can see on the screen, we already have the number of items that is left. So let me just quickly explain what I've done. We have a border in the footer of the collection view. The border is 60 by 60, the same height and width for our images. And then right there we have a label, and the label is binding to more items, which is a property in our view model. And then the string format is to add the plus sign and then the value to it. We have the fonts to be 24, the color to be white, bold, center, horizontally, and vertically. So that is it. Now lastly, what we need is the details design. So I'm going to copy this, still in this under the vertical stack layout. I'm going to paste this now. what we have here is just also simple. We have a grid, giving it a name, horizontal option end, margin 0, 60, 20, 0. We have a rectangle just to form the background, and we give the rectangle a radius of 60 and the radius y of 60, because the height and the width value of it is actually 115. So the nearest value is actually 120, and we're giving it 60 60, so that we have a rounded rectangle. And then in this grid, we're going to have the vertical stack layout to give us the arrow and then the details. So we have our design that is now very much ready. Now we have our layout and design done. So coming up next is custom controls. Now if you look at our design, you can see that it's not quite there yet. We have a rounded border for the collection view, and each of these border at different times we take on different form. So you can have different rounded corner, and for us to be able to achieve this, we need a custom control. And of course, for the purpose of the animation, we need a custom control. So in the control, we're going to add a class, and we will call it, let's call it custom border. Custom borders, or border, custom border. And then what we would do is to let this custom border to inherit from the border control. And now what we want to do is to have a list of preset values for the corner radius. So what I'm going to do is to set some values for corner radius. We will create a method and call it add corner radius. So what we want to do is we want to randomize the value. So we're going to have an index, say pick a value from 1 to 4, because we have 4 items. And then what we're going to say is that we want to set the stroke shape of this border to be a new round rectangle, and in that round rectangle we're going to set the corner radius to be a new corner radius, and set the value to the index to an index in this corner value. So whatever index that we've randomly selected, we're going to pick that value from the list of corner radius value. So in our constructor 𝐸𝐸, what we now need to do is to call our method, so that anytime that we have called this border, we should have different kind of borders. Now also, the last thing we now need to do is to go to the landing page and then change our border to a custom border. To do that, what we need to do is to bring in a namespace, property, so property app.control, and then where we have the border in our collection view, this should be it. What we now need to do is to do CT and then bring in the custom border. So just replace it like that and then run this application. We should be able to see our custom border at work. We should see the result. So now, as you can see, we have a different result, and it's getting closer to what we have in our design. It is what we have in our design, but the next thing we need to do now is to add animation. So coming up is animation. So we're going to make use of our custom border, right? And then in this constructor, what we want to do before we even add the corner radius, or maybe after, any place you want, is to set the translation X of the value of this border to a value. So we're going to randomize it for the purpose of this tutorial. So we're going to say translate x. We're going to set it to a new random value, a new random value, and then just write on the same line, we say dot next, and want to add two different values. So this is the strategy here. We want, at some point, we want some of those borders to come from the left, we want some to come from the right. They can all come from the left or come from the right. We're going to randomize it, so it's going to be like a random value. So we're going to set the initial value, the minimum value, to -500 and the maximum value to 500. So from -500 to 500, that is where we want to randomize each of these border. The same thing we want to do for the rotation. So rotation is going to be also kind of randomized, and what we want to do is we want to use the same value of the translation to set our rotation. So what we want to do now is to set the translation to be let's do math.max. So the maximum value between the translation x of this border and 100. We don't want it to be more than 100. So if the value is more than 100, it's going to default it to 100. Now what we need to do is to now set the animation when this is loading. So we're going to handle this in the loaded event. So when the loaded event is fired, what we want to do is to, so if we just set an event here, and then we're going to set the animations. So the first animation we want to do is to translate it back to 0. So we're going to do say this dot translate x translate to. So this control, this custom border, want to translate it to 0 at the x, 0 at the y, and then we want to have a length of the animation to be at 1500 milliseconds, and then we want to set the easing to be sign in out. So sign in out. Then we do the rotation. This dot rotate to, rotation to, or rotate to, and we set it to 0 because we are having it at the rotation, and then the value is the same value as the length of the animation, is the same length as the translation, and then we set the same easing to be sign in out. So now we can test the first animation of our landing page and see how it works. So yeah, you can see the animation works. I'm going to close this app. So every time we are launching the application, we have different corner radius for the border, and we have different animation for each of the items. So if I click on this, now we have the details page. We need to do the animation for the details page. So let's go into the animation for the details page now. So we will go to the code behind for the details page. That is where we will work on the animation. So the first thing we want to do is to set our default positions. We want to set the view positions, for all the views before they animate, the default positions. So I'm going to put that in a method. So I'm going to do private, no, not here, if I can put it in the right place. So private void, and call that set set view positions. So the first thing we want to do, our details button, we set the opacity to 0. The scale for the so we are working on the details button now. I think it should, that is the view details button. If I can quickly show you, that is the circle. This is it, the circle that has view details and the arrow. So we are setting the values. So we are setting the opacity to be 0. We want to set the scale to be 0.2 because we want to scale it back to 1, and want to set the rotation to a value of 300. The next thing is the image view. That is the list of images. If I can show you from here, it is this list of images. That's the image view. We want to set the default position for that too. So we want to translate that in the X position to be 300. So it's going to be out of the screen, and the opacity, we're going to set it the value to 0. So it's going to completely fade out. Then we have the address view. That's the view at the lower part of the page that's showing the address and the price. So we want to set the translation of that to be of -30. So they translate X and translate Y. We want to set them to the same value. That's why I'm doing this. Translate X is equals to translate Y, and it's equal to 30, -30. And the opacity of that also, as you must have guessed, will be 0. Then we want to set the button, for the buy button, opacity 0, scale to be 0.2, and lastly here is the pop view. I mean the entire view now. What we label as pop view, not the entire view actually. We label it as pop view, which I can quickly show you. This is it now. That's the lower part that is showing everything. So this is the lower part. This is the address view that you can see here, showing address and the price. This is the buy button, and then everything all together is called the pop view. So we want to animate this entire view for the pop view, and also animate each of these components. So we have that, and then we can call these set positions in the constructor after we've set the binding context. So this, anytime we launch this, it's going to set the default values, and then it's going to give us the values that we want. Now what we now need is to do some rotations. So we need some animations rather, and we have 3 different animations that we want to do. One is to fade and translate, the other one is to fade and scale at the same time, and the last one is to rotate. So we are separating the animations to 3 different animations, and the way we're going to do it is we are going to create 3 different methods, and we're going to make it generic so that we can reuse the animation. So now I'm bringing in these 3 different methods. Fade and translate is taking a visual element, so we're going to pass in our view. The default value is the length. Fade length is 1000 milliseconds. The translate length is 1500 milliseconds. And then the view, any view that we pass to it, will fade to 1 from whichever value it is, and any view that we pass to it will translate to 0 using the length and the easing. The same thing with fade and scale. We have default values. We are going to pass in a view, and any view that we pass to it is going to animate using these values. And the last one is the rotation. The rotate view also is going to rotate that view to 0 using this length and this animation. So for us to be able to now do this, we're going to use the loaded event for this page. So loaded equals, let's wire up the event.
This is going to be sender and the event args, and we set that to a new event. Let me show you what we want to do. So this view and this view, we want to animate them first, and then we have a short delay and then animate this. Just a short delay, and then all animations will end at the same time. So what we're going to do is to fade and scale the details button, then we rotate the details button. So it's going to be fade and translate the image view. So after this, we want to have a short delay so that all animation will end at the same time. I'm going to paste this in. So we have fade and translate, we have our pop view, fade and translate the address view, fade and translate the buy button. So those are the components at the lower part of the page. So with this now, we can actually run the application, and then we should see things working the way we want them to work. Waiting for it to show. So now we have this animation. As you can see, we click on this and then we have our animation. If we go back, click on another one, we have the animation.
So that's it, guys. We have our complete projects, from project setup, to layout and design, to custom controls, and then finally to animation. Don't forget to subscribe, and then you can check out some of my templates, check out some of the link in the description. Until next time, I'll see you guys.